Welcome back to The Double Take. I'm Ethan Mitchell.
And I'm Josiah Mitchell.
And believe it or not, we are twins. And
I know, shocker.
now you can tell the difference. All right. It's not just phenomenal editing, which it is.
Although we appreciate those compliments on the editing. But
no, we are two individuals who share the same DNA and sometimes look different. So,
yeah, every now and then.
So this is one of those times. And I do feel a little like, because we don't look the same. And I'm branching out. And
well, thanks for sticking with us.
Yeah. Anyway, today we're talking about dating again. And we came across a video that's super insightful, and we want to share that with you and share some thoughts from our perspective.
Absolutely.
But before we do that, there's this 80s or 90s song talking about relationship, and it goes something like this. Everybody needs a little time away, I heard her say, from each other. Even lovers need a holiday, far away from each other. Hold me now. It's hard for me to say I'm sorry, and I just want you to stay. Anyway, that's a great song.
Oh, absolutely. Chicago, come on.
Chicago. But let's go ahead and get into the video.
Most people do not want to hear this, but a real lasting relationship requires a lot of tolerance. You have to accept that the other person is not perfect. Disappointments, pains, and irritations are inevitable. The real question is whether you are ready to face the ups and downs together, because that's it. Loving is recognizing that the other person has flaws, weaknesses, moments of doubt, just like you. Loving is embracing their imperfections. Seeing beyond the arguments, misunderstandings, and mistakes is realizing that perfection does not exist in relationships, but there is beauty in the efforts to stay united. It's about learning to forgive, communicate, and grow together. Loving is a choice to stay, to fight.
As you may have noticed in that video, it was strangely true.
Yeah, wow.
A lot of the things that he was saying were very insightful. Obviously, it was a voiceover, so it wasn't like a physical person saying these things, but someone did write that down. And especially right there at the end where he said loving is a choice.
But yeah.
How true is that? Because
so true, bro.
Feelings will ebb and flow. I mean, as you know, as the listener, as the watcher, as I know.
Yeah, we definitely know the feelings they come and go. I'm definitely more of an up and down person. I wish I was like just solid.
I'm a little more middle of the road when it comes to things
middle
like
of the road.
that.
I'm like, yeah. So we balance each other out really well.
And so that's part of the reason why it's so important that love is a choice, because of the feelings that ebb and flow.
Yeah.
And you're not always going to love the person that you're married to, that you're dating.
No.
You know, there will be times of difficulties, of conflict, of strife.
Right.
And that's when those bonds of love, especially if you're married, that covenant will hold you together.
Absolutely.
Because it can be so hard to love each other.
Oh, it definitely is. And if you have siblings, you know this. Like sometimes it's just really hard to love that person. I saw a comment today on a video where they were kind of dogging on their siblings, and somebody said in the comments, a sibling is an enemy you can't live without. You know, there's someone that you very much dislike, but also you just like, you would be crushed if they were gone. I don't think that's necessarily true for everybody. I love my siblings.
It's not true for us.
It's a huge blessing to have siblings. Not to sit here and toot our own horns, but not pat ourselves on the back. But like, we got great siblings because of we've got great parents, and we hope you love your siblings. But anyway, relationships are it's a commitment, and that's the thing. If it wasn't hard, there would be no commitment. If it was always easy, you would just always stay.
Right. Like, if it wasn't difficult, would it be worth doing?
Right. Yeah, it's like hard work. It takes work.
It does.
And if it was easy, everybody would do it. But that's why one of the reasons our divorce rate in America is so high, is because people just throw in the towel and they're like, I'm good.
A lot of times they do. Sometimes, there's other factors that play into it. But if you're getting divorced just because you're throwing in the towel and it's like the no-fault divorce system, that's not love.
No.
That's anti-love.
Yeah,
that's
absolutely.
love of self, not selfless love.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's a good line, boy. I see you. That's a good line.
Well, let's walk through some of the points that this video made talking about love requires tolerance. And now that's not like okay, I'll tolerate you. No, it's more like I'll tolerate some of the things that you might enjoy. So like, say I'm dating a girl and she really likes to go bowling and I don't like to go bowling, but I like this girl. Like, I'm going to hang out with her. Yeah. I'm going to tolerate some of her wants, some of her likes,
it's
because
also
that I love her.
Yeah, absolutely. And we would encourage you not just to tolerate it, but to enjoy those things as well, because then you can do something that you both love together. And I think there's a negative connotation that comes with tolerance, because it's more like you have to do it, but you really don't like it.
Yeah,
you have to,
and make a fuss about it.
Yeah.
But also make a fuss about how you don't like it, but you're still gonna do it, so you're still a good person. Either way, just fuss about it.
Just relax. Like, just learn to love what the other person loves, and then you can, like I said, do something that you love together. But that is very true in relationships, is it does require tolerance, because again, relationships are not easy, and he talks about the pains and irritations of the other person, and he actually talks about how you're marrying or you're in a relationship with an imperfect human. That is so true.
That is so valid.
Yeah.
I know the feelings, the initial feelings, the honeymoon phase, as they call it, can make someone seem like they are just perfect, but it's just not the case.
Absolutely.
And the more you get to know someone, the more you'll see their flaws, and how you can love someone through their flaws is, number one, keep loving them, and number two, not try to slander them, not try to point out their flaws, but love over their flaws, and not like talk to everyone else about their flaws. Right. Be like, man, I mean, she's cute, but like, have you seen her teeth? Something like that.
Okay, that's an extreme example. One thing that you don't want to do in a relationship is tolerate them to their face and be intolerant behind their back.
Oh, that's called flattery.
Yeah, that's two-faced. You don't want to, oh, no, I love you. Did you see this guy?
I hate that
this
person.
dude. Oh, I love don't do that, all right?
Yeah,
but you have to understand that nobody's perfect except for Jesus Christ. Nobody's perfect. And when you're in a relationship, whoever you're with is going to disappoint you. But that's one of the reasons like marriage is a covenant, because it should not be broken, because you say, hey, till death do us part, I'm going to love your imperfections, I'm going to love who you are, and I'm going to choose to love you, because there's going to be times when you do not feel like loving somebody.
I know, and that's why it says in sickness and in health, for richer or for poorer,
for better or worse, all that stuff.
For better or for worse.
Yeah, absolutely. And he talks about in the video, like, are you ready to face the ups and downs together? Because that's one thing I feel like is not talked about, is that there are genuinely such ups, like we ups, like we
some big time highs, and not like, outside forces, not like some of that Mary Jane.
Yeah, not some, no. We're talking about like
Cuban lettuce.
In the relationship, you like, especially when you start dating someone, you're just like, oh my word, like this is amazing.
This is fantastic.
And then don't be afraid. And don't be like scared whenever it dips a little bit, because that's going to happen, because somebody's going to disappoint you and be like, I did not like the way he tied his shoes. That's an ick for me.
It's like that video we just did about the ick, stick with the icks. Yeah. Stick through the icks.
Just come on, push through. It's going to be okay. If they're just like the worst person ever, you're like, no, it's just a low point, and they continue to be horrible. Maybe time to set sail.
Yeah. Yeah, and another time it would be to set sail is when you have genuine doubts about a person, and as you kind of observe and you're thinking through, or if you're wise, you're praying through these doubts, and these doubts persist. So like if someone's desires, career aspirations, how they spend their time, if that's something that genuinely concerns you in a negative way, that would be a good time to go ahead and just cordially end the relationship, be like, hey, this was fantastic. I really enjoyed getting to know you, but I just don't think it's going to work out. It looks like we have different trajectories that we're going on, different life goals. So I think we should go our separate ways. There's totally times like that. But this guy, this video talked about, sticking through the ups and the downs, sticking through the weaknesses, and sticking through the doubts. There are a lot of doubts that you can get through, that you can shake. Time always tells, character always shines.
And that's one thing our granddad said. He's a super wise guy. He said, time will tell, because it will. And then my dad said, when the time comes, character cannot hide. And those do go hand in hand, because there will come times when somebody's character really shines forth and you are shocked by it. And you're like, well, that's not the person I know, or like
Yeah.
that's not the friend I thought he was or she was or whatever it is. So time does tell significant stories, and so you want to be with somebody for a long period of time. Maybe wait and watch somebody for seasons, and obviously not watch them outside their window.
Yeah.
But like watch them carefully whenever you are out. See how they're reacting with people. Maybe go serve somewhere together. Maybe do some fun things together. So you see them when they're fun, and you see them when they're serving, and you see them when they're relaxed or whatever they're doing. You want to be with somebody who is the same in all seasons.
That's right. Yeah, someone who's consistent. That's super important. And another thing that this video talks about is forgiving, communicating, and growing together. That's huge.
That's so
huge.
big,
I mean,
yeah.
you always hear how, like, a lot of times people's biggest concern for a relationship is that it will be communicative, that people will have open communication that's clear, because then there's no misunderstandings. It avoids a lot of excess hurt, things like that. And so that is super important for a relationship, is to communicate clearly. And then because of that imperfection, people are imperfect that we talked about earlier, there will be times when you've got to forgive. They may have wronged you, and that stings. It does sting. Genuinely,
it's hard.
from personal experience, it stings. But you've got to forgive them. If you want the relationship to continue in a healthy manner, you've got to forgive them.
Absolutely.
And that doesn't mean like bringing it up every now and then, or be like, oh yeah, well, you remember that time?
No, because that's not forgiveness.
No.
That's bringing up, because here's the deal. If I wrong Josiah here, and then he says, hey man, I forgive you, and then like a week later he's like, okay, well, don't be doing that again.
Yeah, that's just kind of twisting the knife.
He's bringing
a
it
little
up
bit.
to twist the knife, because he's like, oh, remember how you hurt me? I'm gonna hurt you a little bit. That's not forgiveness. That's actually very painful, and leads to, I mean, obviously, like broken relationships sometimes is because you genuinely have not forgiven him. And I used to do that. There was a time in our lives when we were not together, like we weren't even in the same state. And Josiah, like, we have such a good relationship that when he was gone, I was so like angry, and I was angry
Because it was my fault
and I was
that
angry.
we weren't spending the summer together.
Yeah.
I'd gotten in trouble, and I had to stay and get some discipleship.
Yeah. Anyway, we were in different states, and I was so angry. And so like when we were together, I made it miserable, because I would be like bitingly sarcastic, and then I would say things that really just twisted the knife. And the Lord, obviously, he helped open my eyes, and hey man, like, you have not forgiven Josiah, all right? And if you have been forgiven much, how can you not forgive, right? Because we have been forgiven much, because the video talks about imperfection. We're very imperfect, but we were redeemed and saved by the perfect person, Jesus Christ, as he took our sin upon himself on the cross and died and rose again to seal our salvation.
Right.
And so he talks about one thing. He says, accept the imperfections and then embrace the imperfections. And I think it's really telling, because at the beginning he says accept them. And then at the end he says embrace, and I think that's pretty key in a relationship, is you say, okay, well, yeah, no, that's fine. You see a flaw or something interesting that you don't necessarily vibe with, but you're like, hey, that,
As long as it's not a
bad.
sin issue.
Yeah. So you accept it. You're like, okay, yeah, that's perfect. You're a flawed person. I'm a flawed person. I am willing to overlook. And then in the end, you embrace that, because you're like, this is who you are. As long, again, like Josiah said, as long as it's not a sin issue, you learn to embrace it and to love them for their quirks, as some say.
Yeah, that's true. And that's huge. I know that's very reassuring for the other person, even for me, to have some sort of quirkiness, and I'm kind of like, say I was insecure about it. I don't think there's anything, but it would be like that. I would really want my significant other not to point that out, not to jeer, not to make fun, but to genuinely be like, hey, no, I love that about you.
Absolutely.
Like, shoot. And so what we're trying to say in this video is, yes, love is a choice, and yes, love is hard. And so the way to really love someone is to be selfless, to go into a relationship not thinking, what can I get out of this, but what can I give in this relationship?
Absolutely.
As a model of Jesus Christ. Because Jesus, we love because he first loved us. And he was so selfless in his love that he died so that we could have a relationship with him. And he didn't just die. He was buried, and on the third day he rose, according to the scriptures.
Yeah.
And he is now seated at the right hand of the Father. So the fact that he came and lived, and he suffered on this earth. He lived sinlessly, he lived perfectly, and yet he died because we were imperfect. And he redeemed us because we deserved death for all of our imperfections, for all of our sin. And yet he died so that we don't have to.
Right, and he died knowing our sin, knowing our flaws, knowing our imperfections, knowing how we wouldn't fight for a relationship with him, knowing how we were totally imperfect and totally needy, and he knew all that. He knew us as individuals, and he knew us as a whole, as his people, and he still died for us, which is a huge thing. And so what we want to say is, like, people are imperfect, and that is okay. That is something to be loved and to be embraced, because everybody's broken.
Yeah, and if Christ in his perfection could love us in our imperfection, how much more can we who have been redeemed by Jesus in our imperfection love someone else who is also imperfect, you know? And so we want to model our love, especially in a relationship, around the love of Christ Jesus, who loved his bride, which is the church, but also the world, mostly the church, but, you know, also the world.
He did die for the sins.
You know, there's some theology in there. But he did that in a perfect manner because he came and died. And so we can love selflessly because he loved selflessly.
Absolutely. And so what we're trying to say is, like, hey, be like Jesus. And
Yeah, amen.
He's the best person to model. We should be walking in a manner worthy of how we were called. We should be walking in order, like, we should be trying to model our lives after Christ.
Absolutely.
So, especially in our relationships. So let's do that. Last thing he talks about is, like, stay and fight. And you want to be somebody who's steady and who fights for a relationship. Don't throw in the towel. Don't give up. Don't walk away when it is someone, especially if you're married, but when it's someone that you genuinely love and you feel like you are ready to spend the rest of your life with. There's times where
things don't work out.
Yeah, but try not to let that happen. And if it does, hey, that's all right. Lord's in control. He'll take care of you.
That's right. Well, we appreciate y'all watching. Thanks for listening. You know, again, we're the Double Take.
I'm Ethan Mitchell.
I'm Josiah Mitchell.
And I got a haircut.
Yeah, he did. He did. Well, we appreciate y'all.
Have a great day. Have a great week. Honestly, have a great life. But come back.
Yeah, anyway.
And as always,
be good.